Yeah, how's it going, everybody? My name is Orlando, aka I guess hybrid or Big O. I don't know. I'm possibly doing a name change in the future, so we'll see how that pans out. But the more important thing is it's been a while. I haven't made a video in a long time. I think my last video was like the little bit of everything 9, I want to say, which wasn't my best work, but I just wanted to get something out to laugh at for myself personally. But don't worry, we will have more content available that is just going to be overall better, hopefully. I'm trying to really up the quality of everything I do, which is what you should be striving for when creating content, but I'll get into all that later. For right now, via the title of this video, of course, I want to go over my thoughts on the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. I know it's been a little while, it's been a couple weeks now at this point, but life be life, and so haven't had a real chance to kind of dig into it and my thoughts and stuff. I wanted to include some friends on this, but I feel like time is such a conflict. Plus, right now it's like 7 in the morning. I've been up since like 5, so I just thought, hey, what better time when it's real quiet and not what's going on that I could talk about this. So hope everyone's having a good day. Let's get right into it. So we're gonna first start off just talking about the beta overall, but we'll get into maps, monsters, mechanics, weapons, the multiplayer aspect of it, and then just expectations of what might come after. So that's the order that we're gonna go. I literally made a notes thing on my phone here. So beta overall, actually, I'm gonna give it like an 8.5. I want to say out of 10, just because it's a first beta. There are definitely some things that like didn't work too well. I wasn't a lot of negatives though, but it was a pretty good overall experience, and that's where I'll leave it at, just like an 8.5. I think it was really fun overall. Let's start off first with maps. So for maps, we only had the Windward Plains to begin with, which is perfectly fine. First beta, Monster Hunter World included just the Ancient Forest, and for Monster Hunter Rise, it was the Shrine Ruins. So one map, totally fine. Windward Plains involving the Mount, the Sacred, I think was a much needed implementation. I got tired of running around World so much with how big of a map it is, especially a map like Wildspire Waste, or the Coral Highlands. I think those were relatively just really big maps, and granted, most monsters wouldn't go such a ridiculous distance to go to certain locations, but like the Ancient Forest, for example, I mean, you had to chase some sucker from sun up to sundown in certain cases, and a mount would have just helped, or hell, water bugs honestly would have made the journey just a lot easier to have dealt with. Nothing bad, nothing against how World was played, just that was a personal thing for me. And Windward Plains, including the mount itself, I think makes traversing the landscape so much more enjoyable. From going to what kind of felt like a bit of a graveyard area was a bit fun, to the actual the sand itself, the dunes and the little hidden spaces and crevices or little caves to kind of explore. The little village you can find on the side as you're traversing, kind of closer to Raydow's location, the little oasis. I mean, overall, like, that was just really enjoyable, finding the different nesting areas of certain monsters. Raydow's little space with all the lightning, great. I loved all of it. I'm hoping that the Scarlet Forest, the Oil Basin, and then whatever the other, I guess, 2 maps, I want to say, I think it should be 2 maps, right? I think the other 2 maps hopefully come out to be something really cool. Yeah, those are my at least those are my current thoughts on the Windward Plains. I don't really care too much about maps personally, but I think it was very pretty. The storm effect on the map, I think, was one of my favorites overall. Just with how the appearance of Raydow would come through, and then how monsters would act and behave. It seemed almost more aggressively in some of those cases, so I was really a huge fan of that. And the mount itself, I personally have always kind of voiced like, man, I wish there was a way to get around the map faster. So when Rise came out, there was a way to ride the Palamute and then use wire bugs as well to traverse. I was like, dang, I hope this comes back. And I'm glad that of all things that could have, I mean, I think there's a couple changes from Rise that they brought back, but I don't know all of them by memory. But the fact that they brought back mounts and said, hey, let's make this an official thing. Maybe not a dog, but do like a little burrow raptor and then throw them in there. I think that was great. The only thing about the mount that I think is not a fan favorite of mine, though it is fast, so not a favorite thing of mine, has to do with the weapon swap. So for those who didn't get a chance to play the beta or somehow have not seen gameplay of it, you would have to press, at least for me, it was right on the D-pad. If you were like mid-fight or just walking, the Sacred will come and you will then mount it automatically by having pressed right on D-pad, and then you'll swap your weapons. My only thing, and I think it's just because, again, I'd have to play more to kind of get a feel of like why it might feel funny. I feel like I don't always want to ride the Sacred to then have to jump right back off with the new weapon, because it sits on the side pocket of the Sacred. Like, if you think about it, like llamas or camels, right, when people put stuff on their back, there's like a little side satchel pouch thing that they have, you know, and I feel that's where the weapon gets stored essentially. So I feel it's a little odd that I have to keep mounting the damn thing, then jumping right back off to get back into the action. I think it's fine for the most part. Like, it doesn't really bother me. It's just the one thing that makes me go like, I could do without it personally. Other than that though, the map is fun. The weather effects are super fun. The mount is a goated mechanic, and I'm excited to see how well that will be implemented in other maps and how it'll force us to want to use the mount even more depending on certain environments. Maybe they might be difficult to traverse by foot, but the Sacred has maybe fun little cinematic jumps, which that is honestly one of the coolest things. So when you get out of the camp and run over the plains, at least the main camp, because there's another one you can go to off rip, but when you get out of the main camp and you just go directly forward, there's these big old, like, I guess they're rocks that you can kind of like have your Sacred like jump around on, and it'll kind of like ride this little, kind of like what Rails and Sonic Riders would be like you can just kind of like go forward, curve to the left, jump off, boom, glide down. Like, it was just kind of fun to watch and do sometimes. So I hope that's more implemented more. Maybe have your Sacred like wall jump every I don't know, every now and then. Overall though, that was really fun. And in terms of monsters, so we got 4 that were made available to us via this beta. We had the Chupacabra, the Shagama, the Balahara, and we had Raidou. So in that order, Chupacabra, right, is typical. At least to me, that was seen as a very safe, kind of like tutorial Great Draggers style monster. It didn't ask for much. It was slow, very sluggish. Didn't exactly hit super hard, but it wasn't meant to. It was meant for you to get a chance to use your focus attacks, get a feel for how to maybe use the weapons, use the new mechanics. It was meant to just be very easy and safe. So I think that was overall just really fun. I think Chupacabra's design is pretty chill. Yeah, there's not much to say there. I mean, it was just a beta. At the end of the day, this is like one monster out of many that we'll see, and probably the one that we won't think of too often. The Chupacabra was pretty awesome. I do like it a lot. So that's all I really have to say for that. Now, Deshagama, right, was kind of like one of the big 3, I guess you would say, in this beta, given its pack mechanic with the Alpha Deshagama and then the betas that were hanging around it. Deshagama, I think, in my personal opinion, and as not just myself but others, has like the ugliest face ever. This like weird wild mutt bear dog, whatever the hell it's supposed to be. That was rough to look at. But the monster itself, so the game would give you a large dung pod that when you shot it, it blew up like fireworks, bomb explosion blew up, and it would force all the monsters to evade the area so that you could fight the Deshagama one-on-one. Now, the Deshagama was definitely tough. It was also the first monster, actually probably the only monster that I ever did some sort of clash with, the power clash, where and that's actually a new mechanic we'll get into later, but so that was the first monster I did that with, and overall that was like super fun. I enjoyed hunting it, and I think the mechanic where if it gets enraged and it creates all those weak spots, I think is interesting. It does make it a little easy at times because of the fact that like you can just straight up like rip it all apart. If you like, for example, I think if you have like the heavy bow gun, or if you have the bow, you can break weak points. Like you can break multiple weak points relatively quickly. And I mean with other weapons as well, if you like aim yourself properly, like with the great sword, when you hit your weapon into the monster, you kind of drag it across its body really quick, you might be able to hit multiple and break multiple weak points. So nothing against that. It's just interesting mechanic to see, like the monster purposely giving itself a weakness, I guess, but it also does get a lot more aggressive, so it doesn't make it easy as well for you either. So I guess there's some sense of balance in that. Overall, fighting the typical Dashiguma is kind of like the Chupacabra, only just a bit more aggressive. Kind of like Puke when you first meet it. Like, it's a very easy monster, but that thing will slap you, it'll poison you, it would hit you with its tongue. So the mini Dashigumas kind of feel the same way. And I think that's really unique, that it's like almost the exact same size, fights in a very similar style, but it's not as powerful. And I think it kind of helps as like another tutorial monster that's a bit of a step up even from the Chupacabra. So I think overall that's pretty good too. Now we'll say for the next monster, Balahara, this monster surprisingly did prove to be troublesome, which I thought was a little bit odd for my crew and I. But, I mean, that thing was no joke. It dug into the ground a million times, shot itself up to make sure we couldn't hit it. It would spit at us, dance around, twirl. Like, it just did a whole mess of things. Again, was not at all a bad monster. It would it like trapped my friends and I in little dune pits like multiple times. And, it's one of the few times that I've ever used a screaming pod like I should. I know, because you can obviously use it with Diablos and Black Diablos and World, but it wasn't really a necessity for me to have to do that back in that game. Just at least at higher level, at higher end content. But it is funny to use that Screamer pod so frequently, because the amount of times that thing would dig underground and try to bring us down with it was just really stupid. But it was really fun overall, and I like the fact that it could trap other monsters too if there is a fight going on. And turf wars happen like very quickly in this game, so huge fan of that. Balahara did prove a challenge. It was quick, it dodged a lot. That was awesome. Lastly, and most importantly, I guess not like the Apex Predator. I was gonna say a flagship, but it's not the flagship. The Apex Predator are the Windward Plains that we were introduced to a couple months ago, being Ray Dow. Initially in the first trailer, when Ray Dow was shown, it was like this monster who was kind of like in a black silhouette, and you could see, I think it was the Dashiguma, getting absolutely railgunned. And everybody was just like, oh my god, is that the Elder Dragon? What's going on? This and that. Turns out it's just the Apex Predator. So it's interesting that they introduced Ray Dow, but they chose not to like reveal it fully until sometime later on, which is very much like Capcom to do with Monster Hunter reveals in terms of monsters and locations. They might give you like a small hint or a taste maybe, but they'll go into it deeper if they really feel it much later on. Ray Dow overall was a really fun but a really tough fight. He was powerful. He one-shotted me and my friends a couple of times. Getting parts on him broken did prove a little bit troubling. Maybe weapons were weak or we just weren't doing it correctly. But overall, we were able to break tails on the wings, on the face. The face was super tricky, especially. But overall, that was really awesome. I love its mechanics of like storing the lightning energy into like the rods in its mouth and then just shooting like a hyper beam of electricity at us. That was pretty engaging, I would definitely say. Or it was more difficult. You had to engage with it by dodging the hell out of it. But so that was a lot in that moment. But overall, nothing bad. I really enjoyed Ray Dow. I do like the music with it, and the fact that my buddies say that it sounds like wind chimes whenever it like kind of like roars. and stuff, I could kind of see that a little bit. But if you have yet to fight Raidel like at all, I mean, definitely watch a Hunt and 2. But if you want to experience it yourself first before watching anything, then hopefully when that second beta comes around, y'all get a chance, because that was an awesome fight. I was able to kill it solo, I was able to kill it with friends, we were able to kill it quickly with just 2, just 3, and 4 people, and it felt like a balanced fight each and every time, just a really tough opponent because, you know, it's new. Other than that, super awesome. So that's it for monsters. Again, we just had 4. There was a lot of like small endemic life, but me personally, I don't really engage with all of that, so I don't have any commentary to make on it. But again, game was very fun and also very beautiful. Like, I'm not gonna go into graphics too much, you could just see it for yourself. It's a very pretty game. I think, again, the storm environment is my favorite to kind of display what the Windward Plains looks like in that kind of way, with the winds are going crazy, the monsters get a bit more aggressive, Raidel decides to show up. Like, it was a lot, but it was awesome at the same time. Now in terms of mechanics, so there's only like a few mechanics I really have any care to focus on, funny enough, with the Focus Strike and the Power Clash. There are, I guess, monster, or I guess weapon mechanics, for example, but I'll just get into that when I talk about the weapons. So for one of the simplified mechanics I guess I'll get into is with the Clutch Claw, or the Slinger. I think it's just called the Slinger. You're able to grab resources from a distance, which is always pretty fun. And then I think it also auto-crafts for you, but that also might just be a setting you can change. But then also, whenever there are like little like stalactites, I think they were called. I'm trying to remember what they are called. That, or boulders in the air, or whatever the case may be, if there's something that you could look up and it will tell you, like, press circle or press, you know, whatever controller you're on, like press B or press circle to grab this thing and bring it down on the monster, like some rocks or whatever. I think that was pretty unique because I didn't have to shoot at it, and sometimes trying to shoot at shit was annoying as hell in World. So I'm glad that they took overall the shooting mechanic or the Clutch Claw mechanic away from the actual Slinger. I wasn't too crazy about it. I don't think a lot of people were crazy about its implementation, or at least the way it was done. Maybe if it came in initially with the game, sure, but just not a fan favorite, you know. So with the Focus Strikes, though, we'll get into that now. So with Focus Strikes, I think that is probably the best implemented mechanic. It doesn't feel out of place, or it doesn't feel like it really breaks anything so far. Like with Rise's wire bug attacks, or with Generations Hunter Arts and whatnot. Nothing against either two of those mechanics, but those, that is the you don't call it mainline, I guess sideline, I don't know, you the other titles. You know, I think with those games, they did overall a relatively decent job at giving you really crazy anime-like superpower moves to execute on monsters, and I think it's really fun. But what I like with Focus Strikes is, one, there's a highlighted part on the monster that'll kind of like red with these little like, kind of looks like the fireflies or whatever floating about. It's kind of telling you like, hey, hit me, like hit this spot. And the fact that you can just do just about a lot of things with different weapons. Longsword, you like poke it and then do like an overhead strike. Great sword, you can force your weapon in and then drag it across the monster's body. With the gun lance, you would take out the actual why am I blinking out on what the hell it's called? But the actual like gun part of it, you could like take out the front half of the weapon and then grind that against the monster until it blows up. And the Wyvern's Fire, like I thought that was pretty tough. So overall, I think that was really cool, depending on the weapon that you had and how it was implemented properly. And it didn't really exactly break the flow of combat, but afterwards you kind of have to reset sometimes in a weird way. But you could still get right back into it, so that was really good overall. Power Clashes, which I had mentioned earlier, I only was able to execute with the Dashagama, and all that is with certain weapons that have a shield, if you time it correctly, or I think in reality it's like an invisible meter that you couldn't see, but if you were able to clash with the monster correctly or block the monster enough times, then you'll force the monster to engage with you by like reeling backwards and then jumping forward to grab your shield or grab whatever it is you're using to protect yourself, and you can like stab it a couple times, or if you have a gun lance, you'll charge up like a shot to use. Just again, kind of depends on what you have going on with the weapon itself, but it was really interesting to see how different those power clashes did look. I think Raid Out also had one, but I don't know, and again, I think we'll see other monsters that have it as well, other brute wyverns and this and that. So it'll be really fun when we get to that point. I know Charge Blade had one because they did it with that. I know Gunlance has one. Pretty sure Sword and Shield has one. I know Greatsword has one because it was featured like in a demo reel thing back in the summer games, I want to say. So power clashes is super fun. Focus Strikes I think is the best like base mechanic I've ever seen in a long while. And then again, the Slinger stuff is pretty chill. No more Clutch Claw, so I'm happy for that. Now to get into the other stuff here, so weapons, right? Other than the monsters and the locales, weapons are really, really important in this game because everybody's got to find a weapon for themselves. But now, at least you don't have to. But the game is really encouraging you to not only have one but two weapons available to your name. Now, as far as my crew, I got a buddy who uses Gunlance, Charge Blade. But he might be going to Dual Blades though. I have a buddy who uses Longsword and Hammer. Another one that uses Greatsword and Hammer. Like, everybody's kind of got a different flow to how they choose to play. Me personally, there's like 4 weapons on my mind that I use a lot, which is Greatsword, Longsword, Charge Blade, and right now the Gunlance has honestly been having such a strong hold on me. But the Hunting Horn and Lance are like right behind it as well. And I think for having 14 weapons available in the game with no mentions of a 15th one for the most part right now, I think it's important to be able to have a secondary weapon opposite of what you already have. So if you have something like slow, like the Greatsword, or I guess the Hammer, I guess you could call slow, but slower weapons that can't hit maybe as high or as hard, it's good to have another weapon that sort of acts as like a balance to the weight that does the opposite. So if I have something slow but heavy, fast and light, Greatsword and Dual Blades, like it's just an overall big difference. Or Dual Blades and like a bow, like maybe short and quick, but then you also have something long range as well and medium speed. So I think that really is a good thing to encourage players to have multiple weapons that they can use and implement properly. But we have yet to see how decorations and armor skills are going to work when there's not 2 weapons to be concerned about. And as well with speed runs too, I was seeing this a lot. Most people just sticking to one weapon, probably because it's just a lot faster, and again, the Sacred forces you to have to get onto it to then change out your weapons. But overall, I am excited to see how people are going to go about using the mechanic of having 2 weapons and how they're going to, if they're even going to bother using those 2 weapons. I will say weapon wise, Greatsword felt samey. The ability to shoulder tackle and then go straight into a true charge slash is a definite favorite of mine. I think it just helps to shortcut and take out a lot of the excess, like, oh, great, now I gotta shoulder tackle one more time and then charge and shoulder tackle again and then do the hit. Like, that's a lot of time wasted, plus the monster could be up in the air by that point. Overall, just not worth it, but I think that's a really good mechanic for the weapon to have. Longsword, the only complaint I think I have, and I think it's more because I'm just so used to being overpowered, is that whenever you have the spirit gauge all the way to the max, you could keep doing the spirit combo like ridiculously if you wanted to, but in this game it kind of drains the meter, and unless you keep doing the spirit combo, the meter will continue to drop. Or if you do the spirit charge as well, you can get it back, but again, you're still losing out on a decent bit. So other than that, that's like really the only negative, and again, it's more but just because I'm used to building it so quickly and not having to worry about it going down so fast if I didn't need it to. But overall, the weapon is really fun. There is a lot of counters. I want to say there's a lot of ways that the weapon can just kind of go in and go out like really quickly, which I think is a little bit odd. I think Ratatasker on YouTube actually kind of goes into it a whole lot more about the longsword changes, so I will link the video down below in the description so you can look at what I was talking about. I didn't personally feel the exact same way, but I'm not exactly I am, I guess, a longsword main, but I'm not like a super in tune longsword main. I know the weapon well enough to counter and force side slash and all that jazz as I need to, get really good times on my hunts, and then keep it pushing. So, that's really it for me. The only other weapons I'd try that I really, I guess, have any commentary on, so the gun lance is not a weapon that I use really often. I did pick up the gun lance a lot in Rise, only because of the bullet barrage skill, which really made hunts fly through in just a few minutes, because you would like super load the weapon, use the wire buck to throw yourself forward, then you would like, I guess inject is not the best way to put it, but you like I don't know, force the gun lance inside of the body of the monster and then just blow it all up like a shotgun. And I think that was honestly one of the best things I had seen in a long while with the gun lance and how powerful it can be. So I think that's definitely going to be a contender for a weapon that kind of fights its way to the top spot, especially with these new changes that have been introduced. And then the focus tackle as well, when you're taking out the actual like gun lance portion and splitting it in half and then using that as like a drill inside of the focus spot. I think that was honestly super awesome. So huge fan of that, putting the wyvern stake in. Other than that, the charge blade, I guess, is the only other weapon I have any commentary to really make. The only thing with the charge blade that I'm really not a fan of the charge blade personally. I think the play is relatively about the same. I'm not a fan of a couple things. Like for one, before, when you had, say, a full shield, you had a full sword and a full shield, full sword, and then you amped up like the spinning axe part of it, I guess, like the savage axe part of it. You can't just pull out the weapon, and for me it would be triangle and circle and go straight into doing the full the full amp discharge. You can't just do that. Instead, you have to like swing once and then you can do the full thing. So somebody's probably gonna figure out this basing on how to hit that perfectly on the head every time. Nothing against it, just not a fan of it. I don't know if that was because the weapon was made too easy, or they felt like the mechanic was too easy to pull off or something. But for wake up attacks, it just kind of it's a little bit of a stick in the mud. As well, charging the weapon the way it is now doesn't feel super comfy. It does feel like it takes a little too long. Again, could just be the beta. We don't have any skills to kind of help push filling the files up a lot quicker, which is, again, that's fine, but it does just feel a bit slower, because you can charge the shield relatively quickly, just like you could back in the other game. But then if you hold the sword to charge and you don't press triangle while you're doing it, like you have to hold, like for me, right trigger plus circle plus triangle, which isn't like a hard button combination to hit. It just did feel odd because it's not what I'm used to in other games. I would just hold circle I would hold triangle, I guess, once you hit the circle to charge the blade independently. But now if you just hold circle, you just charge the savage axe portion of the weapon, which is fine, but it just felt a little odd. Other than that, I don't know. Great. The charge blade was pretty dope otherwise. Executed very well. It was very strong the way it needed to be. So I was really a huge fan of that, and I have nothing negative to say. All the other weapons, lance, hunting horn, bow guns, dual blades, they were all pretty fun. I only did get to play a few others in that regard, but they were all really fun. I enjoyed the hell out of them. And then overall, yeah, like I have genuinely nothing negative to say. It is, again, only a beta, so we'll see how things really do turn out. They might change some of the stuff. They might make it better. They might make it worse. We don't really know, but I'm excited to see how that's going to turn out. The next thing to really address here is the multiplayer. Now, with the multiplayer, there was nothing necessarily wrong initially. My buddies and I were able to connect into lobbies and get into hunts right away, which that was pretty awesome. There were a few times that one of us did get cut out of the lobby, or we ended up we either got cut out, we got pushed, we got disconnected, error on the game, forced him to close. Only happened a few times, at least on the first day or two. I guess they were just working out all the kinks and all that, and then later, I think there was an update, or whenever they updated it for like everybody else, because I had PlayStation 5, so I did get it a few days early. And I think when they updated it for everybody else, then it was like, okay, like things are working now. My other complaint is that when we were in the same environment, my buddies and I, we couldn't post a quest with each other in the same environment link, which I thought was a little bit weird, but I did see that it was a mechanic that was not released yet for the beta. Like, it just was not available to use. So that'll probably be a change in the future, because that would be a lot better. It's kind of like having, it's like what it felt like is like if you sat in a normal 16-player lobby, say in World, but you can't go to any of the quests of the people in that lobby because they're in your world. Instead, you have to go fight in somebody else's world who has the same lobby you have, just in a different world. Felt odd. But again, probably a mechanic that just wasn't available. So hopefully by the next beta, we will get something. If not, that's fine. My friends and I were able to connect really quickly either way, just by joining friend sessions through the party or through the actual game. And then the little friend request that the game does tell you to try to do with your friends. So overall, nothing against it. That was pretty awesome. Multiplayer did play really well. My friends were able to join quests super easily. The fights or the hunts did feel well balanced whenever there was 2 or 3 or 4 of us, or if one of us left, you know, even like with the disconnections that would happen sometimes, you know, still felt like the fight was pretty fair. They're pretty tough. Monsters seem to have been made better in terms of like tracking different opponents at different times, so it's not doing a full barrage on one, but it, you know, kind of evens out the damage with everybody. I think that's pretty cool too. So yeah, multiplayer, super cool. Just hope the environment link thing gets figured out. Other than that, not a problem at all. Other than that, I think that's really just about it. Again, this is just a beta. I had, I think I had like a Monday night to a Sunday night kind of thing of it in terms of like availability to play the beta. There's only so much you can do in that game. You could try to learn a weapon, you could try to learn the monsters, you could speedrun if you wanted to, or whatever. Another mechanic I completely forgot to mention. Throwing the barrels is like the top 10 funniest things that you can do in that game now. Where you can place down like a large barrel, pick it up, like kind of swing it back, and then bowling ball it towards the enemy. I think that's awesome. And even if you miss, it can still just kind of roll on for a little bit before it blows up. Huge. I love that. I think that was just funny. Other than that, I think that's really about it in terms of the beta itself. What I do expect of either the next beta or just overall the game itself. One, I'm hoping that the Sacred again is not something that I have to keep mounting in order to change out the weapons. The environment link thing figures itself out. I'm hoping that for the next beta we fight Arkveld. Only reason I say that is because in Generations, whenever the demo released, you would fight various monsters, but then you could also fight Valstrax, which was like the flagship for that game. Nergigante was also a monster you could fight for World. Volcana was also a monster you could fight for the Iceborne beta. And then Magnum Malo was a monster you could fight in the beta, and Malzeno was also a monster you could fight in a different beta. So for this one, for us to have fought Raidao, that's awesome, and I'm hoping that in the next one we get to fight Arkveld, so we really get a true sense of what it's like to deal with that thing, because the White Wraith, probably the toughest looking Elder monster I've seen, or Elder Dragon I've seen in a while. And it's also interesting to think that this next game as well is not going to be too heavy on Elder Dragons for the most part. At the most, let me be featured just a few, which I don't feel like there's really that many. I mean, I guess if you were to go into World, you have Teostra, Lunastra, you have Kushala, you have Volcana, you have Valhazak, Nergigante. I stopped counting, but what is that? Teostra, Lunastra, Valhazak, Kushala, Dura, Nergigante. So you have 5 right there. You have Elatrion, Xena Jiva, Safi Jiva, Kolve Terith, Fatalis, that's another, so that's 10, I think. Namiel, Black Velhazak, that's what, 12. Yeah, I think that's really about it in terms of all the other dragons, unless I'm missing somebody else. But yeah, like Rise, I think had even less, I want to say. You had Narwa, you had Ibushi, you had Kushala, you had Teostra, Shigaru, Magala. You also had the hell is the name? Gyasmagorm, that's his name. Gyasmagorm, Malzeno, the other Malzeno, Primordial Malzeno. You did also have, what is the name? The monster, Amatsu. You had Amatsu as well. You did have Valstrax, you did have Volcana. So I guess it's about 11 or 12, really. So Oh yeah, okay, so they had a pretty good amount, but it was over like that's base game plus this DLC plus that's like post content drops. Like that's that's over some time. So I would hope that this game would have, say, a few monsters. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get Arkveld. I'm pretty sure we'll get Arkveld in the next beta. But what I was gonna say is that I'm assuming we'll get Kushala and Teostra. I know they're kind of like the Rathalos Raytheon kind of duo in terms of all the dragons. If they do come back, I hope that Teostra is not as annoying as his Rise counterpart. But I hope that Kushala does fight a lot similar or a lot more like his Rise counterpart. I think Rise did Teostra dirty. I just never enjoyed fighting Teostra. It's not a hard monster, but I just never enjoyed fighting Teostra. And I did not enjoy fighting Teostra over in Rise. I think it was just not a fan of it. But Kushala, I think, was super, super awesome the way it's implemented with like the dragon energy and then using the wind a little bit differently and staying more grounded. Granted, yes, these monsters have some big ass wings, so they could definitely fly around and shoot at us all day, but obviously that'd be boring. So I like the fact that Kushala did a fair balance of being on the ground more than it was in the air. But when it was in the air, it wasn't the worst thing in the world either. So overall, still pretty good. Other than that, those are my thoughts. I think, again, Arkveld will make an appearance. We probably will not get into the locale, in quite all honesty. And if they did, it'd be to introduce like one or two more monsters. I'm pretty sure when the Game Awards come around, we will then see, I think when the Game Awards come around, we will then get another like demo release, which will probably happen like, say, in January, right? Because the actual game itself comes out February 28th, 2025. So I think around January, probably mid to late January or early February, we will then get another demo released. We'll fight Arkveld. Hopefully the multiplayer stuff gets handled. And hopefully this beta, which apparently was like an even older version than the one that was showcased at like Summer Games Fest or whatever, the Tokyo Game Show. Hopefully the beta that we have will be a lot more updated as well. I don't know if that means updated in graphics, updated in mechanics, updated in like software requirement, whatever the case may be. I just hope it's a better version, just to see like if there really is that big of a difference. Because I did record, which what you're watching right now, it's just again background footage. But I did record some hunts, and then I have hunts that I'll be uploading as well of just what my friends and I did when we hunted like Raydao and I think another monster, I don't really remember. But I'm just posting them. I'm posting honestly those for my own sake, just to have something to look back onto, and also to get storage off my PS5. But other than that, yeah, that was super fun. I enjoyed the beta a ton. I hope you all did as well. Again, hopefully the next beta comes around January, mid-late is my best guess, post Game Awards, like announcements and all that jazz. And yeah, again, goal is to kind of have more content available. I won't say like on a completely like weekly basis, but the goal is just to have more content generated over time so that there is more to be had and whatnot. If you guys enjoyed this, please let me know down below what your thoughts are on the beta. How did you feel about the weapons and mechanics? If you had things that you'd like to commentate or feel like there's things I missed out on, I'm pretty sure there's a million things I missed out on. I'm a very typical Monster Hunter player. I enjoy it, I play something else here and there, so I'm not like a super in-depth guy, but I really enjoy the series a whole lot more as I've gotten into it recently. So that's just me. But yeah, let me know if there's anything that you felt like I should have touched on, or you would want to make commentary on yourself. I know the majority of my subscribers that might still actively be watching came from my Monster Hunter 6 expectations video, which amassed like 26,000 views, which is crazy to me. So thank you for that. That is huge. That almost made me want to fully commit to being a Monster Hunter YouTuber only. But I'm not a fan of how that kind of content gets done nowadays. I'm not going to get specific because I don't care, but just I enjoy it. So when the game comes out, I'm going to be going a lot more in depth into it. I'm going to be very much involved with it. So thank you again for watching. Hopefully you watched the whole thing. If there's anything you think I missed out on, please let me know down below. Like, subscribe, or don't. Completely up to you. But yeah, thanks for watching, and just be on the lookout for more stuff to come out soon. Thank you again. Bye.